Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. So, you guys send in some really cool stuff on new ways we might be storing mechanical energy in the future.
Yeah, a lot of what you shared touches on this whole area of mechanical metamaterials, which is, pretty fascinating stuff.
It is. It's like scientists and engineers basically building new materials from scratch so
Yeah,
they can have them do things that no natural material can.
exactly. And the goal in this case being to design materials that are really good at storing energy.
Okay, so there's this one study that really caught our eye.
Yeah.
It's a team from China, the US, and Germany working together.
Wow, a real international effort.
Yeah. And they're looking at this new type of mechanical metamaterial. And get this, they've designed it to store and release elastic energy, but way more efficiently than anything we've ever seen before.
That's impressive. Oh, it is. The stuff you guys sent, these excerpts from Eingefickter text, they really break it down. And one of the researchers, Professor Peter Gumsch from KIT, he says the biggest challenge is getting the balance right, between how stiff a material is, how strong it is, and how much it can bend and still spring back to its original shape.
Yeah, I can see how that would be tricky. You want something tough so it doesn't break, but also flexible enough to store a good amount of energy.
Right. And what they managed to achieve here is kind of mind-blowing. They're talking about enthalpy, which is basically, you know how much energy you can actually store in a material and then get back out to use?
Okay, makes sense.
So their new material has an enthalpy that's 2 to 160 times higher than what we're used to.
Wait, 160 times? That's a huge jump.
It is. It's crazy, right?
So before we even get into how they did it, can we take a step back? Why is storing mechanical energy such a big deal anyway?
Oh, for sure. It's actually all around us. Think about the springs in your car's suspension.
Okay, yeah.
They're there to absorb those bumps in the road. And shock absorbers in machinery, they keep things from getting damaged. And even robots, you know how they move so precisely. That's all about storing energy and releasing it.
And don't forget things like making machines more energy efficient.
Right.
That often comes down to how well you can store and use mechanical energy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where enthalpy comes in, right? It tells us how much of that energy we can actually recover and put to work.
So help me understand this. You've got something like a regular spring, right?
Yeah.
And you bend it, you're storing energy in it. But if you bend it too far, what happens?
Well, it could snap, or it might not spring back properly anymore.
Right. And the interesting thing is, inside that spring, a lot of the material isn't really doing much.
What do you mean?
Well, the stress isn't spread evenly. The outer part of the spring is taking on most of the strain, but the inside isn't really being utilized as much as it could be.
So it's like you're wasting some of the material.
In a way, yeah. And here's where this new research gets really cool. Instead of bending, they focused on twisting.
Twisting.
Yeah, torsion. They found that if you twist a rod, you get a way more even distribution of stress across the whole surface. And you're using more of that inner material that was kind of just sitting there before.
Twisting. That's pretty clever.
And it gets even more interesting. They took it a step further with this thing called helical buckling.
Okay, now you've lost me. What is that?
So imagine you twist a rod really, really hard, like a lot of torsion.
Okay.
Instead of just twisting neatly, it starts to buckle.
Buckle.
Yeah, imagine a straight rod suddenly coiling up into a spiral or a helix along its length.
Like a corkscrew, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And there's this image, you send it over, and it shows this helical deformation really well. It even says, thanks to this mechanism, storing a high amount of energy is possible without breakages.
Oh, that's really cool. So it's not just about twisting. It's about how the rod changes shape under all that twisting. That's what lets it store so much energy without falling apart.
Exactly. It's like this buckling creates all these little pockets throughout the material where energy can be stored safely.
Okay, so they've figured out how to make individual rods store more energy by twisting them into these helical buckles.
Right.
But how do you actually use that? You're not going to stick tiny twisted rods into a machine, are you?
No, of course not. That's where the real engineering comes in. What they did was take these little energy storing units and arrange them into a bigger, more complex material, a metamaterial, they call it.
Okay, so they're making a kind of framework out of these twisted rods.
You got it. And they used computer simulations to design it. They found this new metamaterial would be super stiff and really good at absorbing force.
And the simulations showed that enthalpy we talked about.
Yeah. They predicted it would be between 2 and 160 times higher than other metamaterials.
Whoa, so they didn't just stop at simulations, right?
No way. They had to test it out in the real world.
So how did they do that?
They did these really simple compression tests. They took metamaterials with mirrored structures. Yeah, like think about your left and right hands. They're mirror images, right?
Oh, okay.
So they tested these mirrored structures and found that they really did have that super high enthalpy they'd seen in the simulations.
So this is a material that can hold a ton of energy and release it when you need it. What does that mean for the future? Like, where will we actually see this being used?
Professor Gumsh mentioned a bunch of possibilities. One of the biggest ones is spring-based energy storage.
Okay, so like better springs for everything.
Yeah. Imagine springs that are way smaller but can hold way more energy. That could change everything for vehicles, machines, all sorts of things.
And what about shock absorption?
Huge potential there. Think about cars that are safer in crashes or buildings that can better withstand earthquakes.
That's pretty amazing. What about robots? I remember reading about that.
Oh yeah, robotics could be totally transformed. More efficient, more agile robots. They could do way more complex things.
And basically any machine that uses mechanical energy could benefit from this, right?
Exactly. Anything that involves converting motion into stored energy and back again could become way more efficient. And then there's this idea of using the twists inside the material to make entirely new types of joints.
Joints, like in a robot arm or something.
Yeah, or in all sorts of machinery. They could be super durable and wouldn't need much maintenance.
This is really groundbreaking stuff, and it's important to point out that this wasn't just one lab working alone. This was a global effort.
Absolutely. Researchers from China, the U.S., and Germany. And a big part of it was done at CalIT and the Fraunhofer Institute in Freiburg, where Professor Gumsh works.
And this research just got published in Nature, right?
Yep, just came out on March 12, 2025. It's called Large Recoverable Elastic Energy in Chiral Metamaterials via Twist Buckling.
So the takeaway here is this new class of metamaterials with those twisted helical structures, they've changed the game for how we can store and release elastic energy. They found a way to overcome the old limitations by, twisting instead of bending.
It's a perfect example of how thinking differently about materials can lead to major breakthroughs.
Totally. So, thinking about all this, what kinds of crazy new machines or devices do you think we might see in the future? Stuff we can't even imagine right now.
Oh, man. Who knows? But it's going to be exciting to find out.
And how will this new way of storing energy change things compared to, like, all the advances in battery technology we're seeing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Lots to think about there.
For sure. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.